This is Chairman Cynthia Berg speaking. Before we get started, I would ask that everyone joining us please be patient and respectful as we navigate this meeting remotely. At this time, allow me to confirm that all members and persons that participated on this agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Commissioner Span Cooper.
Present.
Commissioner Tom Gibbons. Commissioner Gibbons. Commissioner LaMalfa.
Present.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Present.
Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Polito Sanchez. Commissioner Polito Sanchez.
Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Chima Enya.
Present.
Rick Haymaker.
Present.
Avi Zissuk.
Present.
Dean Argyris.
Present.
Dushanka Marjan.
Present.
Michelle Flagg.
Present.
Jason Youngberg. Jason is here. Les Peterson.
Present.
Tom Schlenhart.
Present.
Are there any other staff members present at this time? Okay. Sorry, what was that last one?
Hunter.
I couldn't
We have-
understand that.
This is joining us. She's with the new IT department. Good day, everyone. I thank you in advance for your patience and cooperation through today's meeting, which is convening remotely via WebEx events. On January 8th, 2021, Governor Pritzker renewed disaster proclamations for the entire state of Illinois regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Normally, the Illinois Liquor Control Commission would hold meetings in the James R. Thompson Center in Chicago. However, on March 15, 2020, Governor Pritzker issued Executive Order 2020-04, issued by Executive Order 2020-01, which closed the James R. Thompson Center to members of the public. This open meeting of the Illinois Liquor Control Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Public Act 101-0640 and Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2021-01. Issued on January 8th, 2021, which reissued Executive Order 2020-07, issued March 16th, 2020, 1 year, which suspended the Open Meetings Act provision related to in-person attendance by members of a public body. The Open Meetings Act requires public bodies to allow for public comment according to the rules of the public body. This meeting will feature public comment. Members of the public interested in commenting at this meeting were asked to provide their comment in writing via email by 5 p.m. yesterday. Pursuant to Section 100.41F of the Administrative Rules governing the ILCC, those who wish to speak during public comment were asked to pre-register via email by 1 p.m. yesterday. Those individuals will be called upon and granted permission to speak during the public comment portion of this meeting. Those individuals who pre-registered to speak, please ensure that the information you registered matches your WebEx registration information. You will be unmuted by the secretary at this time. Please note that this meeting is being recorded as well as transcribed by a court reporter and that attendees are participating via WebEx audio conference and telephone. The agenda for this meeting has been posted on the website. We recommend the members and the public follow the agenda as posted. Before turning to the item on the agenda, please allow me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes and transcript. I, Chair Berg, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they include remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes to assist the court reporter. For any response or comment on any item, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you. And as always, state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken by this meeting will be conducted via a roll call vote. Item number 1, Secretary Ajeris, please call the roll.
Chair Berg,
Here.
Commissioner Gibbons, Commissioner Gibbons,
At this time, we're still having technical difficulties with Commissioner Gibbons. I apologize. I'm still working to get him in.
okay. Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Here.
Commissioner Span Cooper,
here.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Here.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Here.
and Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Powell? Looks like he's not present at the moment.
Did he ever sign in?
Looking through the list right now, I am not seeing his name on there as of yet. Nope, he's not on here yet.
Jason, would you like me to take a brief pause in order to facilitate Gibbons and Powell?
He says he's running a few minutes late. I just got a message here.
Okay. And we lost Commissioner Gibbons for time being.
I believe Commissioner Gibbons is now active in the chat. Commissioner Gibbons, can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 2. Do we have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the board meeting held on February 17th, 2021?
This is Commissioner O'Connell.
Seconded.
Second.
Commissioner Span Cooper.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Connell and Span Cooper. It has been properly moved and seconded. Secretary Ajeris, would you please call the roll?
Chair Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
and Commissioner Powell is still not present.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 3, receive Executive Director Enya's report. Director Enya.
All right, good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. I want to, as I usually do, thank our staff for the phenomenal job that they've done in and out each month with really charging forward with the programs and the initiatives of the Commission. I want to, take a brief point of privilege. As many of the commissioners already know, this is my last Commission meeting, and I'll be moving forward into a new opportunity. But before I go, I wanted to make sure that I thank the commissioners for their support. Couldn't have done this and made the progress that we've made without the support of each commissioner. I want to thank the industry members for their collaboration and their work, their understanding and their patience as we navigated some very difficult times over the past 3 years. And I want to thank the governor's office for the appointment, the vote of confidence in the initial appointment that I received. And most of all, I want to thank my wife and my family for this opportunity and the support that they provided me through this journey. Just wanted to give a brief synopsis of the things that we've been able to navigate and what we've stood by, what our core mission has been. We wanted to make sure that we really regulated this industry as a staff with integrity, transparency, collaboration, efficiency, and responsiveness at the forefront of everything that we do. And so to that effect, we were able to implement Public Act 11050, which separated, as everyone knows, separated the Department of Revenue and the Illinois Liquor Control Commission. We were able to drastically improve our ability to review Liquor licenses, our renewal times have gone from 10 days to 1 day, essentially real-time renewals. We've eliminated all of the backlogs in our legal division, whether that be sale of alcohol to minors, pre-disciplinary conferences, our appeals. At the time at which we started, we were able to navigate and eliminate all of those backlogs. We revamped our legal advisory process, and so we wanted to make sure that we standardized the process of evaluating questions that come in from the industry, so that we can provide consistent opinions that are based on historic precedent, that are based on where the industry is going, and that are based on the law, the statutes that we are responsible for adhering to. In our time, we've increased our online renewals from 60% to 97% to date. And so we are consistently getting renewals on a month-to-month online at 97%. And that's just a testament to our efforts to increase the use of technology. And by doing so, improve customer service to our licensees. We've revamped our Underage Compliance program. As all of the commissioners have seen, our newsletter has been revamped. We held our first ever 100% virtual College Town Summit, which is reinforcing one of our core missions, which is to prevent underage alcohol consumption. Our entire staff, our licensing and enforcement staff, have been trained in de-escalation and customer service. I always say it's not a gotcha game when we go out and do our inspections or when we assist licensees. We want to make sure that we're providing top-notch service while also being able to de-escalate and educate our licensees into voluntary compliance. We've increased our enforcement staff by 130% over the past 3 years. And so this was one of the core responsibilities, the core charges that we had as a commission, really to expand our enforcement, to make sure that we can provide that service to all of our licensees and also protect the three-tier system and our system of regulation, ensuring ordered markets. And so most recently, we've navigated COVID-19. It was a very challenging year, almost a year to the date that we had to really shut things, shut down our openness in the office and really transition to being remote and really assist businesses in a different way. And so it was with the support of the commission and all the individuals that I've mentioned that we were able to do that. And thank God that we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so one of the most important things for me in my time as executive director is really making sure that we exceed our all of our affirmative action and EEO goals. And so I'm happy to announce, and I have announced in the past, that we have done that, and hopefully to leave a better legacy going forward. It is with all those things that I just want to express my appreciation to, again, all of the commissioners, the governor's office, my staff, my family, and the industry members that were very patient with us in navigating this process and helping to revitalize and get the industry on track. And so with that, I will yield my time and just say thank you to everyone. And I have appreciated immensely the opportunity to serve 11 years in state government. So thank you all.
Any questions
Chairman.
or comments from the board on Chima's departure? Go ahead, Commissioner O'Connell.
Well, I've been a commissioner now for about 11 and a half years and have lived through 4 full-time executive directors, and some of them better than others. I have to say that Chima brought a whole new perspective to the role of executive director, and the fact that he is probably the most competent of all the ones that have been here. He's supportive of staff. He doesn't pick on staff or try to find blame, but rather ensure that staff are successful, and he keeps his focus on the goals at hand. I have been much more comfortable with him as the executive director than I have ever been before. We're going to miss him, obviously, and I just want to let him know that we appreciate everything that he's done for the commission and for the people that we serve. Thank you, Chima.
Thank you.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez. It's bittersweet, Chima, but you have, to Commissioner O'Connell's point, you really have taken the role of the executive director to another level. You have professionalized a lot of the processes. You have a great team that you've worked with, and it's in no small part it's your leadership, and it's because of that leadership and how well you've done here that others have noticed. So it's our loss, but somebody else's gain. And I wish you well and your family and your future.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Commissioner Span Cooper, and I echo the sentiments of my fellow commissioners O'Connell and Polito Sanchez. I've only worked with you for 2 years, and I'm so glad that Commissioner O'Connell shared his experience, because he's probably been with you the longest, he and Commissioner Gibbons. But I will tell you that leadership dictates attitude. And the 2 years, nearly 2 years that I've been there, the team is so incredible. It feels like a great team. And it's because of you, in large part because of your leadership, Chima. And so while we are so saddened to see you go, whoever replaces you has big shoes to fill. And I hope that you will onboard them in a way that it will continue your legacy. But we wish you well, and I'm sure we will hear about you. You're just a dynamic presence in the state of Illinois, and so you have nothing but runway, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner LaMalfa. I echo just about everything that was already said. I am very sad to see you go, Chima. But at the same time, I am so thankful that our paths have crossed, because as a leader, you have inspired me, and I know that you'll continue to inspire others in any role that you take on. And thank you for your commitment to the commission and everything that you've accomplished. You truly have left us in a better place, and with a good path forward, more importantly. So I feel that you've done an incredible job at that as well. And for that, again, I'm just very thankful.
Commissioner Gibbons, I echo past comments. Again, I've been on the commission for a while now, and I appreciate the leadership that I've seen from Chima, and I hate to see you go. I wish you the best of luck. I'm sure you're going to do very well wherever you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chima, this is Steve Powell. Congratulations. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Well, Chima, thank you so much for everything you've done we just owe you a tremendous amount of gratitude. I'm really sad to see you go, but I know I wish you good luck. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
Anyway, anybody else? All right, item number 4, receive ILC operations PA 100-1050 report from Director Enya.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for those kind words. Just wanted to give a brief update. Our Director of HR, Laveris Jeffries, has started. She is well underway, doing an excellent job in her work. She is leading the charge with our general counsel interviews along with Tom. Those interviews are going well. There were 4 candidates identified that are currently pending in the governor's office for interviews. We're also moving forward on our inspector titles. And so those titles have been a year in the works. We have actually, not the inspector, the supervisor titles have been a year in the works. Those interviews have taken place, and the candidates are currently going through grading. And so that just feeds back into our efforts around revamping and reinforcing our enforcement division. The transition from the Department of Revenue, we will undertake another review of the remaining IGA, the intergovernmental agreement between the Department of Revenue for our use of their GenTax system. And so every year we want to take a look at that just to make sure if there are any services that we can wean off of, or determine the pricing, that we are ahead of the ball in looking at our intergovernmental agreement. So Tom Schlenhart is monitoring that process. And so that really concludes our Public Act 11050 report for this month. In my absence, Tom has been, he's the Associate Director of the department and has been leading that effort since it began. So we imagine that he will continue to coordinate with the Commission and provide updates.
Thank you, Director. Any questions or comments on the board on the operations PA 100-1050? Okay, moving on to item number 5, receive updates on COVID-19 directives from Director Enya.
Yes, so just 2 brief updates. One, we have updated our FAQ on the website. We wanted to make sure that as things come, as new information comes from the Department of Commerce, the Department of Public Health, the Governor's Office, that we update those FAQs, especially based on questions that we receive from the public. And so that FAQ has been updated and it is posted on our website. The other update, as you all may have well heard, the numbers in terms of COVID-19 are improving, and the Governor's Office and the Department of Public Health are in conversations to relax more restrictions as we get through the spring into the summer. So we are looking positive that the trend is going in a positive direction, and we will continue to regulate as such. The various directives that we issued over the past year, many were temporary in nature. And so we'll require looking at many of those directives as they sunset and making sure we find other ways to contribute to the conversation about what should be permanent and what the legislature will like to do in terms of helping to assist the liquor industry back to full health. So that concludes our COVID-19 directives.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on COVID-19 for Director Enya? Other than we wish it was gone. Item number 6, receive updates on diversity and inclusion.
Yes, so this is more so just a continuation of our conversation around diversity and inclusion, helping the industry reimagine what diversity and inclusion looks like. As I depart the agency, this has been a legacy piece for the Commission and a new initiative over the past year. And so with that, we have with us today, who will present later on in the meeting, Bob Myers, Dimitri Christopoulos, and Chris Coleman from the Associated Beer Distributors of Illinois. And we will continue, as requested by the Commission, to have those individuals, these associations, and industry members come in and just talk about the impacts that they've currently had around diversity and inclusion, what efforts they will be seeking to undertake, what are the challenges and impediments in the regulatory sphere or just in the opportunity sphere, and how we can work together with the Commission, how they can work together with the Commission to ensure that we increase the diversity and inclusion across each sector, each tier of the industry. And so that was just a precursor to what you all will hear later today.
All right, are there any questions or comments about the diversity and inclusion for Director Enya? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 7 and receive the division reports, beginning with licensing from Dusanka Marjan.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners, and Director Enya. I just want to thank Director Enya for all of your support during your tenure here. We worked very closely together. I worked with you when you were with Revenue as well, and I just want to thank you so much. You've been just such a great support. You've been so supportive to myself as well as our licensing division. Okay. Can you still hear me? There was a little bit of an echo. Just want to make sure. Okay. In reference to the licensing update for this month, just to share a few items, we want to inform the commissioner, all of the commissioners, as well as the industry members and the general public, that we have extended our renewals until June 30th of 2021. This is our third renewal extension. The first extension was December 31st of 20. The following extension was March 31st of 21, and we are extending it further until June 30th of 2021 to give our licensees a little bit more time to renew their liquor licenses. We felt that was very important due to the hardships regarding the COVID-19 mitigation actions. So licensees have until 6/30 of 21 to renew their liquor licenses. So I did want to mention that. I also wanted to mention our license lookup tool that the general public, our industry partners, as well as local jurisdictions utilize to verify license information has been updated. It should reflect the 6/30/2021 expiration date today. So if you are looking up license information, you will see that renewal extension date. One other item I wanted to bring to your attention is the new applications that we received for the month of February. We received 195 new applications, and 190 of these were submitted electronically. So I do want to make sure, I did want to point that out. That is 98% of our licensees are submitting their applications electronically. So that has just helped streamline the process on our end, and getting these applications reviewed and processed to our licensees is definitely one of our key objectives. We also were able to finally test our brand registration enhancements towards the end of February, and we have a few minor updates that our IT department is just working on, some recommendations that we had after the first testing phase, and we hope to get those recommendations updated soon, and we should be able to test the updates, and hopefully we can implement these new enhancements sometime in April. And other than that, that's all we have in licensing. Very busy for us. And if you, Commissioners Chair, if you have any questions, please feel free. And once again, Director Enya, we are wishing you the best of luck. It was just wonderful working with you.
Thank you, Dushanka. Does anyone have any questions regarding licensing? Seeing that there are none, we'll move on to the enforcement report from Les Peterson.
Good afternoon, everybody. The Enforcement Division conducted 1,073 inspections and found 104 violations in February. Additionally, 102 warnings were issued during new license inspections and the COVID-related complaints. We also received 63 complaints, which is a 42% decrease from the previous month, which is a good thing. Our underage compliance details are continuing, and we're concentrating mostly on cases concerning the sale and delivery of alcohol via online portals with no safeguards to prevent deliveries to minors. We're also working with other law enforcement agencies doing the actual details themselves. And we are continuing to gather the assistance for that program through HR. As Chima mentioned earlier, we finished up with the interviews for the supervisors and hope to get that up and running very quickly. There's a new section in there that we added, which is called Notable Investigations. In addition to our everyday inspections, this will give you an example of the variety of work our agents are doing every day and have been doing every day. But this just gives you some idea of some of the interesting things that are occurring out there and how complex some of them can be. It also gives an example of how our agents are working with other law enforcement agencies, developing good inter-agency relationships, showing how they follow the trail of different evidence. And I think overall, just let you know that that every day, day in and day out, they're out there doing what they're supposed to be doing. Other than that, that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Les. I do love the notables. It was very interesting to see how people, different takes on things that were actually occurring in the field. And I know it's difficult to be in the situation and have to make judgment calls when you have people in front of you. And Just really interesting.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and we'll include something, a handful of them, and that's just 3 or 4 of dozens that are occurring. But we got to be careful not to put more out there before it's actually been resolved.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Any questions for Les on enforcement from the board?
I do. This is Commissioner Polito Sanchez. Les, I noticed in the our board packet that with the cocktails to go, enforcement has seen accounts not adhering to the hard packaging or the plastic bag for the cocktail to go. Can you expand a little bit on that, or are you seeing a lot of it, or is it just on occasion?
No, we're not seeing any patterns of abuse. We're getting our normal, as I said, there's only 63 complaints. I think people are getting, I guess, used or comfortable with what's going on with everything COVID related. But if we do have one, we do investigate it and we do follow it up as we do every complaint. But we're not seeing any pattern of a runaway situation.
And what is the reasoning for not utilizing that packaging or the plastic bag or the hard container? What's the reasoning for they're not using it? Is it a cost issue? I don't know. Just curious.
I guess this is my catch-all for law enforcement, but we enforce the rules and the regulations or the laws, but this is pretty complex, and we're monitoring it and keeping a handle on it the best that we can. But I don't actually have an answer on why that's not occurring.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for Mr. Peterson? Hearing that there is not a further question, we will move on to the legal reports from Avi Zuzak or Rick. I'm not sure if it's handling it.
I can handle that, Commissioner. It's Avi Zuzak with the legal report. Again, want to echo everyone else thanking Chima for his years of leadership for us all, especially in the last couple of months where we haven't had a general counsel who could serve as our direct conduit. So Chima has been able to provide that leadership. And you did hear from Chima regarding the search for the general counsel, and hopefully we'll have someone soon to fill that position. During the last month, we've been a lot of our efforts we've focused extensively on a lot of legislation. I'm sure that there'll be more discussion later during the legislative summary portion of the meeting, but we've drafted reviews of the various alcohol related legislation that is currently pending in the General Assembly, as well as provided updates on other legislation that has either been signed or kind of is still sitting out there. The only COVID guidance, as mentioned before, was we've updated our Q&A regarding the different COVID guidance. During February, we had pretty standard month in terms of dispositions, as well as in terms of pre-disciplinary conferences. Fortunately, we've kind of our backlog of pre-disciplinary conferences is relatively manageable at this point, and many of those conferences relate to larger cases that are ongoing. In terms of sales of alcohol to minor, we're actually at a pretty low level. There are only 12 cases that are currently pending, and most of those cases are subject to certain level of negotiation back and forth between regarding kind of getting everyone on the same page to have discussions regarding the concerns. As the appeals, I included in the packet for this month a list of appeals. We currently have 23 appeals. Fortunately, we do have coming up 3 hearings next week on cases, and we have 2 hearings scheduled for April. Hopefully, then that additional time will give other people time to formulate, get everyone organized, and hopefully be able to even have this docket even smaller as we get towards the summer. Again, one of our major things is technical assistance, and we're constantly answering phone calls, answering emails, and assisting both members of the public as well as the enforcement and licensing staff on interpretations of the law as things come up. And again, as one of the things that you requested last month was we added to our monthly report a list of the various FOIA requests you received. And as you can see from the list, the vast majority of those requests are either from law firms or from insurance or from insurance carriers who are trying to do a background on their clients or their or opposing sides. We do have several cases that are currently pending court, and we are assisting the Attorney General on those cases. There are several administrative review cases, as well as several other cases which are currently pending. That I believe if there are any other questions, that will conclude the legal presentation.
Thank you, Avi. Does anyone have questions for the legal team? Hearing that there are none, we will move on to industry education with Michelle Flagg.
Good afternoon. And again, thank you, Director Inya, for your leadership. Some of the highlights from that we have going forward, we will have our Bassett Town Hall on April 22nd, and that's in line with our strategic plan, as well as working with the Illinois Impaired Driving Task Force to go over just best practices, et cetera, as it relates to Bassett. The newsletter, first quarter 2021, will come out at the end of this month. Prevention campaigns that are upcoming, Drug and Alcohol Facts Week, March 22nd through 28th, and then Alcohol Awareness Month during the month of April. We'll continue to celebrate Heritage Months. Last month, we had a panel discussion for Black History Month, and tomorrow we will tape the one for Women's History Month. And then May and September, we'll also celebrate Heritage Months. State of the Industry panels, as mentioned earlier, this month it will be the Associated Beer Distributors of Illinois, and then we'll continue each month with a State of Industry from an organization. And then also throughout the month, and just overall, I participate or sometimes join underage prevention organizations or task forces. I attend their meetings, and I always encourage them to attend board meetings and to share their thoughts. I know Cocktails to Go has come up and other items, so I've encouraged them to attend board meetings so that they can share their thoughts with the commissioners. And that concludes my report.
Oh, thank you very much, Michelle Flagg. I really appreciate that you're getting input from some of the other alcohol awareness aspects of Cocktails to Go. Hopefully they will join us in the public comment. Thank you. Any comments, any other questions for Michelle from the board? Hearing that there are none, we will move on to item number 8, receive update on legislature summary. I believe this is Dr. Enya.
Yes, we wanted to provide, we have provided in your packets as mentioned, just a summary analysis from staff in our legal division that we've consulted with both legal, enforcement, licensing, and industry education to evaluate the various legislative proposals that have been introduced in the General Assembly. So we want to provide those summaries to the Commission. We have not taken official positions as proponents or opponents on that legislation, but rather wanted to make sure that we examine the legislation in the context of the federal TTB, past precedent, best practices around the country. So consulting with the National Council on State Liquor Administrators and the National Liquor Law Enforcement Agency Association, and really talking with the sponsors and industry groups to better understand the context of their initiatives. And so with that, we provided a baseline analysis that we wanted to give to the commission to evaluate and offer Rick Haymaker after this meeting or throughout the course of this next month as this legislation is introduced to answer any questions. So we may not get into every piece of legislation today. What you may see, commissioners, is that various industry associations will want to come to the commission to just share broader context on their legislative proposals, and that is welcome. But we wanted to make sure that we gave you the regulatory perspective on each one of the proposals and reached out to the sponsors to make sure that they had that as well. So these proposals have been given to you all, and they'll be shared at the request that whoever requests, we will be more than willing to share and have the conversation about each one. And so if there are any questions on particular ones, Rick Haymaker is available, and we'll make sure that you have his information to talk through each one.
This is Commissioner LaMalfa. I just want to comment on the format and the way that this information was delivered. I was just very, very happy to see the way that it was presented. It was very easy to digest. So to the extent that we can maintain a similar format for future meetings, I think that would be very much appreciated, at least by me. I appreciated the consistency and the way it was all summarized. So thank you.
This is Commissioner O'Connell. I agree with Commissioner LaMalfa. The presentation is very good. Is it correct that I understand we've also given these summaries to the sponsors of the legislation? And do we give them to anyone else?
So the sponsors of the legislation have requested, generally every year the sponsors request just preliminary thoughts on the legislation that they introduce. And a lot of times it happens after they've already introduced it. And so we like to have ready in our pocket a conversation starter. And so that's essentially, as they've requested it from us, we have something available to start the conversation, to just point out from the statutory perspective or from our rules, what the broader impact from our perspective would be, our interpretation of their statute. So yes, to your question, Commissioner, we did share with those sponsors that had requested our perspective at this point, but I did share with them that we won't, as a staff, get ahead of the commission on taking a strong position for or against, without having those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for breaking that down as the flow of how that information will be disseminated amongst the board. We've got that now, and we're not meeting 2-on-2 this time. We're going to directly email Mr. Counselor Haymaker. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So there's 11 bills here, so lots to digest, but I'm sure everybody has read them over, and we'll contact Rick as soon as possible. Just to have it in the ready, as you say, Chima.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions on the legislative summary? Hearing that there are none, we will proceed to item number 9, receive the State of Industry presentation featuring the Associated Beer Distributors Illinois, courtesy of Mr. Bob Myers, President of ABDI. Welcome, Mr. Bob Myers.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to Director Inya for your leadership and your guidance not only for the industry and for the Associated Beer Distributors of Illinois, but for me personally. You've always been willing to take a phone call. You've always been willing to listen to my rants in the late hours. And I just wanted to say thank you. When you called to let me know that you were moving on, I got to admit, I really wasn't surprised. I knew that somebody was going to steal you the very first time that I met you. And that was the first time I met you was during a committee hearing. We both were talking about legislation. And I told my staff at that time, I said, this gentleman's not going to be with the commission very long, rather. I said, he's going to move on to bigger and better things. So congratulations to you. I wish you nothing but the very best on in your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. But let me get started here. Again, I'd like to thank you all for allowing the Associated Beer Distributors of Illinois the opportunity to address you. Again, my name is Bob Myers. I am the president of ABDI. I've been with the association for 28 years. Also presenting today are Chris Coleman, ABDI's vice president, and Dimitri Christopoulos, ABDI's general counsel. Now, I realize that the agenda has us presenting twice today, but in order to maximize the commission's time, our presentation will also include comments regarding the anti-three-tier legislation that only benefits the craft supplier community, which has already received multiple exemptions for the past 5 years. Following our presentation, we welcome and look forward to your questions. What I'd like to do is I'd like to break our presentation into 3 parts, if I may. The first part would be who we are and what services our members provide to the state. The second would be what's going on in the beverage alcohol industry right now. And last would be how ABDI and the ILCC can partner in the effective regulation of alcohol. For the first part, ABDI was organized as an association 82 years ago on December 15th, 1938. We are the unified voice of the beer distribution industry. Our core values are: we believe in strong community involvement, responsible beer consumption, conducting ourselves with integrity. We believe in the value that we add to the 3-tier regulatory system. We are extremely proactive politically in an attempt to promote and protect the beer industry and the 3-tier system. We believe in the strong family heritage of the beer industry, and we believe in the legal and historical place of beer in society. ABDI is composed of beer distributors that represent the smallest and the largest beer distributors in the state. Our members service all brands from Anheuser-Busch, Molson Coors, Heineken, Pabst, Constellation, Boston Beer, to the many craft brands brewed right here in Illinois. We distribute some of the largest craft brews, such as Revolution, Half Acre, and Distill. And we also represent some of the smaller craft brewers, which is Riggs Brewery, Hand of Fate, and Decatur Brew Works. On average, our members serve over 3,500 different packages of beer. I should point out that many of our members also sell other beverages such as wine, liquor, flavored malt beverages, hard seltzers, water, teas, sodas, and milk products. In fact, some of our members also distribute food items. Our members are independent and have absolutely no financial tie to any brewer, large or small. Independence and a prohibition of vertical integration by industry members is the fundamental principle of the 3-tier system of regulating alcohol. This was what the founders of the Liquor Control Act intended by not allowing distributors to have any financial interest or ties to any brewer or retailer. We represent small, family-owned, local businesses. Our oldest member, George A. Mueller Beer Company in Decatur, is over 150 years old. On average, our family-owned members have existed since 1958. There are currently 106 distributor facilities located in Illinois. We currently employ over 5,300 men and women with the average salary of $57,000 per year. Each company, on average, employs 85 hardworking men and women. Illinois beer distributors pay over $500 million in wages and salaries. Employees are offered full health benefits, a pension, and a 401k investment opportunities. Drivers and warehouse personnel are unionized as Teamsters and play a substantial role in our economics. We are proud of the high-quality jobs that all of our members provide. They have both a direct and indirect economic impact in the communities that they serve. Our members recognize and welcome that the demographics are trending towards further diversity, and that ABDI members take diversity inclusion into account in their daily businesses. In the urban areas of the state, such as the city, our members' workforce is made up of 60% Caucasian, 40% people of mixed race and color. In rural Illinois, our members' workforce is 87% Caucasian and 13% people of mixed race and color. My members and my association applaud the Liquor Control Commission's willingness to address this issue, and we look forward to working with the ILCC to help us with some employment barriers that directly impact our diversity inclusion challenges. Chris Coleman will discuss some of these barriers later on in our presentation. In addition to distributing your favorite malt beverages, our members give back big time to their community because they are invested in growing their communities. Excuse me. Illinois beer distributors contribute over $7.5 million annually back to their communities with support of charities, local events, and economic development. Even in the midst of this global pandemic, our members went above and beyond their regular community support, stepping up when others wouldn't or were more worried about taking care of themselves. Chris will go into this a little later. Finally, Illinois distributors collect and pay over $530 million in federal, state, and local taxes. Our members are responsible for ensuring that the state receives the appropriate amount of tax that is assessed to alcoholic beverages. This includes the state's gallonage tax, which is the highest tax in the surrounding states. Illinois beer distributors pay 285% more in state gallonage tax than do distributors in Missouri, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. The state gallonage tax, which is collected and paid by the distributor tier, is placed in Illinois' General Revenue Fund. These funds are used for capital projects, education, human services, including but not limited to substance abuse programs. If it was not for the Illinois distributor, the liquor gallonage tax payment would be based on the honor system with little to no means for verification. This value-added service also assists the state in its duty to maintain public health by tracking and monitoring all alcohol that enters Illinois, ensuring that it's safe and it's registered with the Liquor Control Commission as a legal product. Take a moment to think about the last time you heard about a recall on an alcoholic product in our state. Chances are you probably missed it, because by the time you heard about it, that product was already removed from the marketplace. Every single package of alcohol is tracked in a way that it can be identified and located within little to no time. In the rare instance of a recall, that product is identified, located, and removed from the market in less than 24 hours. Because this is alcohol we're talking about, it must be treated differently than other commodities. If it is not pulled off the shelves and issued a press release to tell, it is not pulled off the shelves and just issued a press release to tell people to throw it away, like you see with other products, such as tomatoes, peanut butter, etc. Our members are in the marketplace immediately to remove that product and replace that tainted product with no interruption to the consumer. Beyond the public health benefit of maintaining safe alcohol in the marketplace, beer distributors are currently assisting in other public health crises. Human trafficking is an ongoing threat for communities across the United States. In 2019, more than 11,000 cases were reported to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. In 2020, our national organization, the National Beer Wholesalers Association, launched the Distributors Against Human Trafficking Initiative to help combat human trafficking in the United States. Working alongside state attorneys generals, our national organization created an awareness training video to help more than 140,000 beer distribution employees in the United States recognize and report signs of human trafficking. Beer distributors are uniquely positioned to help this heinous crime, given their level of access to locations often unseen by the public as they visit around 600,000 licensed retail locations across the country. Now that you understand a little bit about my members, Chris Coleman, ABDI's Vice President, will discuss where we are today. Chris?
Okay, can everybody hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you again for this opportunity for us to present this afternoon, and happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you as well. So a little over a year ago, the world was turned upside down by COVID-19. While speculation of a virus started to trickle out across the globe, its impact came roaring through Illinois the week leading up to St. Patrick's Day. While there is never a good time for a global pandemic, showing up the week of the largest on-premise occasion in the beverage alcohol industry was the worst possible time. Parades were canceled, bars and restaurants forced to close down, millions of kegs of beer would be lost and literally poured down the drain as the United States started to shut down. This was a scary time for all of us, and there was much uncertainty as we all tried to figure out what was going to happen moving forward. But what happened next galvanized the strong conviction that I have developed and maintained during my time working in this industry. When things get tough, beer distributors step up and help. Our members were deemed essential workers immediately by Governor Pritzker. I wasn't surprised by this because I know the values that our members provide to the state of Illinois, many of which you just heard Bob talk about. But when a pandemic hit the world and the beverage alcohol industry, there were essentially two paths that could be taken moving forward. Take care of yourself and try to ride it out, or keep doing what you've always done and help those around you who are hurting too. Our members chose the latter. As was mentioned before, in addition to your favorite malt beverages, nearly all of our members distribute water, dairy products, and food too. Global pandemic or not, people still need access to these goods to provide for themselves and their families. But what happens when others decide to cut back to save on their bottom line? Decisions like refusing to deliver bottled water to multiple locations to save on fuel and labor costs. Well, I'll tell you what happens. Beer distributors step up and volunteer to help out. I had multiple members in that area reach out and say that they would pick up the water and take it to the additional stores when the supplier refused. I can also tell you about my members donating beer to distilleries to make hand sanitizer as the national shortage swept the country and people gobbled up as many bottles as they could get their hands on. They also supplied thousands of meals and beverages to frontline essential workers at hospitals and first responders who were fighting the earliest onset of this pandemic. And when our retail partners in the bars and restaurants were forced to shut down or change their operation to curbside and delivery, our members wanted to do more to help them out. So we started a campaign that was designed to help hospitality industry employees who had been laid off or furloughed due to COVID-19. In addition to the many things they were already doing, and despite the financial impact that COVID-19 was having on their small businesses too, our members raised nearly $50,000 for the Illinois Restaurant Association Employee Relief Fund. I am exceptionally proud of our members and the tremendous value they provide to their communities. But their efforts in this past year have blown me away. When others have been looking to do only what is in their own best interest, our members have continued to step up and help their industry partners. But even prior to COVID-19, our industry faced many challenges. One of the challenges is finding individuals with a valid commercial driver's license or those willing to take a CDL test. Our members are currently hiring for positions that are paying extremely competitive wages. However, we are unable to find employees that are federally qualified to deliver beverages throughout the state. We would welcome and invite the ILCC and members of the General Assembly to use our association as a resource which will gladly assist linking potential CDL holding employees to our distributor members. But while finding qualified employees is certainly a challenge, the biggest challenge beer distributors face today are the constant legislative attacks by other industry members. These attacks threaten the integrity of the three-tier system and promote the proliferation of vertical integration among the tiers. In the beginning, brewers, distributors, and retailers were separated, and each respected what their license permitted them to do. They stayed well within their own lane. Today, that is not the case. This year, there have been numerous legislative attacks by industry members to diminish our regulatory system. Whether or not this is their intention, the effect may well be the obliteration of the three-tier system in Illinois. So far this year, we have seen industry members that already operate in multiple tiers attempt to gain even more privileges for themselves that are not afforded to other licensees. Specialty retailers with manufacturing privileges are also now seeking the ability to distribute their products, eroding the system to allow them to operate in all three tiers, a manner that is not permitted for any other industry member, and it is strongly opposed by industry members representing all three tiers. Twice within the last year, the General Assembly has passed legislation allowing limited delivery and carry out of alcohol. On both occasions, these privileges were limited to retailers due to the fact that their licensed locations were closed for indoor dining and they did not have additional revenue streams to support their businesses. ABDI, along with other industry members, supported these efforts for the safe and appropriate delivery of alcohol through the three-tier system. This spring, we now have manufacturers who are seeking the same thing, despite specifically being rebuffed twice by the General Assembly. And to carry that idea forward even more, they are also attempting to ship alcohol via a common carrier to Illinois consumers. This would apply to both in-state and out-of-state manufacturers and potentially retailers too. This would create a significant enforcement issue and promote access to alcohol for minors. This practice would also have a substantial impact on tax revenue for the state. As was discussed earlier, the three-tier system requires alcohol to be registered with the state and come to rest before being sold to Illinois consumers. This ensures that the appropriate excise and gallonage tax is being remitted and directed to the state. Just yesterday, the industry was informed that Stone Brewing out of California will be paying the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, the TTB as you know them, a fine of $1.8 million for multiple tax violations. These violations include non-payment of excise taxes due to unsubstantiated exports, or failure to collect and pay taxes on products shipped outside their state, as well as failing to timely submit brewers' report of operations and submit accurate operational reports. Stone Brewing makes some great beer, and it is widely available across the country. But if a brewer of this size is failing to pay the appropriate taxes on the products they export, how can we expect this for the other manufacturers that don't even come close to having the same financial resources? As distributors, our members serve as a buffer between the manufacturers and the retailers, a critical buffer that prevents tied houses and undue economic influence in the marketplace. Our members are in the marketplace daily and provide a valuable partnership with you as regulators. As one of your fellow regulators from another state put it, we simply do not have the resources and the personnel to be everywhere we need to be. We rely on distributors to be our eyes and our ears, to assist us in the balance of the marketplace. We know our lane, we respect our lane. It is time the ILCC join ABDI and oppose efforts by those wishing to expand their abilities that weaken our regulatory system. Now, some have called the system antiquated or a system needing refinement. Yet according to a legislative analysis by your very own capable staff, Illinois law and the laws of other states require that alcoholic liquor be sold through the three-tier system. This means in general that a business must choose a tier to be either a manufacturer, a distributor, or a retailer of alcoholic beverages, but cannot cross over into other tiers. This system has proven over time to be the most efficient, competitive, and safe method through which alcoholic beverages are sold to consumers. That quote comes directly from your staff. As the regulators of alcohol in our state, you as commissioners are charged with protecting the three-tier system. In fact, the Liquor Control Act states that the General Assembly hereby restates that it is the policy of this state that the primary purpose of this act is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the state through the sound and careful control and regulation of the manufacture, distribution, and sale of alcoholic liquor through a three-tier regulatory system. To ensure and maintain a three-tier regulatory system, the General Assembly finds that it is the obligation and the duty of the State Commission to construe the provisions of this act in a manner that conforms to state policy and this act's primary purposes as articulated in this section. That is what we are asking of you today. As the Liquor Control Commission, we implore you to weigh in on the legislative proposals in front of the General Assembly. The state employees who work for and represent the ILCC are among the brightest and hardest working in the state. They provide critical interpretation and effective enforcement of beverage alcohol laws in our state. But we need more than their excellent work. Your careful consideration and input carries substantial weight at the State House, and it is needed now more than ever. While the General Assembly has a task of proposing and passing legislation, you have the difficult responsibility of enforcement. Taking a position on these matters before they cross the threshold of becoming law can greatly impact their position and prevent bad ideas from becoming law. Some of these ideas, if signed into law, would be too difficult to rein back in once they are in place. The multitude of alcohol-related legislation this spring session is substantial. Much has been brought forward under the guise of needing it because of COVID-19, despite many of these ideas being brought forth well before last March. Temporary policies issued by the Commission have been reasonable given the circumstances. But as our state and our industry begins to open back up to consumers, it is not the time to make these policies permanent. We have seen what deregulation has done in other industries, and alcohol is without a doubt a commodity that needs strict regulation for the health and welfare of our state. We thank you for the opportunity to address all of you today, and we look forward to continuing to work together with the Commission to ensure a balanced and efficient beverage alcohol marketplace in our state. Dimitri Christopoulos will now specifically address some of the most troubling elements of proposed legislation.
This is Commissioner Polito Sanchez. Chair Burr, can I ask a question? Or is...
Yes, we can ask questions during this, but not the public comment portion. We cannot exchange ideas, so sure.
So I can ask a question, thank you. Chris, what does the acronym CDL stand for? Can you remind me?
Commercial driver's license.
Thank you. I knew it was simple, but thank you.
No problem.
Chris, you mentioned the commercial driver's license. I know that's something that has been mentioned in the past related to providing a pathway or a pipeline for individuals from historically marginalized communities to get into the distribution space. And so I would, I think that's an interesting comment there, and I would encourage also to take a look at the ancillary services around the distributorship and the contracting or the supply chain that goes into it when looking at future opportunities for diversity and inclusion. So thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely, Director. Thank you.
It's Commissioner Span Cooper. I'd like to follow up right where Director Chima was on that question with the need for employment. It seems like, and I think about industries like Uber and Lyft and why they might not have a CDL license. We've got people out here who could really drive. And I was wondering, you said it was hard trying to find people in that space. What is your outreach? Are you partnering with any organizations, any chambers that could be of assistance to you that are located throughout the state or the city of Chicago in order for us to be able to get those, great positions filled, especially by people in underserved communities?
Commissioner, this is Bob Myers. I know that many of our distributors, advertise through social media, through newspapers, through other various resources on the internet to get the word out. We actually will echo those social media pages that are issued by our members and place them on our website as well, and on our social media pages as well. But I like the idea that you've proposed here. Let me look into that, and because, like I said, we certainly need the help. These are good paying jobs, great paying jobs with full benefits, and we're just having a difficult time trying to get somebody to walk through the door that is qualified to get behind the wheel of that truck and get your favorite beverages out there in the marketplace.
Yeah, well, I can assure you that there are people qualified to do that, and I think maybe hiring an outside source who can be intentional with you and helping you facilitate that would be good. And I just have one other follow-up comment, Mr. Myers. When you talked about the diversity and inclusion of your staff, you talked about 60% were white and 40% were people of color. And I didn't hear you mention women's involvement in the organization. And what I've been trying to have people in your industry understand as you come before us, it would be good to have a more thorough understanding of these numbers. 40% of color seems impressive, but what do those numbers really look like? So a little more detailed analysis of how African Americans or Latinos or women or veterans or how they're represented within your organization would be very helpful. Our goal is we want to see you thrive, and diversity and inclusion is so important to that. And so if you could get, have a more micro analyzation of that, that would be extremely helpful, especially for me. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner. And let me just jump in real quick. In the urban areas, for Black or African American employees, it's our members have 16.36% are Black or African American. They're Hispanic or Latino, it's 19.38%. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander is 0.32%. Two or more races is 2.5%. And then Asian is 1.07%. And again, white is, the Caucasian is just slightly above 60%. I don't have the numbers for you on women in our employment. I can tell you that we do have a lot of women that not only serve in the office personnel, but we have a lot of women that are drivers. We have a lot of women that are in fact owners of the operation itself, but a lot of women that are in the sales personnel as well. So great paying jobs there, drivers, sales personnel. Again, we have an actual female owner in the Rockford area as well. So yes, but I don't have those numbers with me, but I can make that request and get them to you all.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
Okay, would you like me to proceed?
Yes, Mr. Christopoulos.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, it's a pleasure to see you, although over Zoom. It's still nice to see everybody, and glad everyone's doing well, is healthy. I've been asked to address some of the legal issues surrounding one specific bill. It's HB 3495, and in the Senate, it's SB 532. This has to do with several issues. It addresses delivery and shipment by in-state manufacturers as well as out-of-state manufacturers. So as Chris said, ABDI is respectfully requesting that the ILCC take a position on such legislation. I personally have worked with your staff, with Avi Zook and Rick Haymaker. They are both very talented, experienced lawyers. I personally, I've been in the industry 20 years. I've learned a tremendous amount from them. They are talented, and this is not to the exclusion of your staff. Director Enya, congratulations. We're going to miss you. But under his leadership, under the leadership of Dushanka Marijan and Les Peterson, they will tell you, I think, that their views, I am guessing, are consistent with our views. Their position, much like ours, will likely reflect that this bill in particular erodes the three-tier system. It weakens the public health and safety of the citizens of the state of Illinois. As you're aware, the three-tier system and its goals are to prohibit the vertical monopolization of the industry, which would significantly increase barriers for new market entrants and also lead to price manipulation by brand owners. The three-tier system has proven effective in preventing large suppliers from freezing out competitive brands. I think you remember last year or 2 years ago, we talked about what the supermarket aisle looks like today in your beer aisle. It's full of colorful, unique, and independent brewers. That's because of the three-tier system. Compare that to your soda pop aisle. You have two major brands, Coke and Pepsi. That's because there is no three-tier system on that side. HB 3495 threatens the continued viability of the three-tier system. There was a case out of California in the federal Federal Appellate Circuit. It's the Ninth Circuit. And that court, it's one of my favorite quotes regarding the three-tier system. The court asked, why is there a three-tier system? It's because it's to prevent tide houses. Tide houses pose two particular dangers, according to the court: the ability and potentiality of large firms to dominate local markets through vertical and horizontal integration, and the excessive sales of alcoholic beverages produced by the overly aggressive marketing techniques of larger alcoholic beverage concerns. I think it's clear that the wholesaler tier, more than any other tier, is the linchpin of the three-tier system. Without that wholesaler, the three-tier system erodes. When wholesaler activities, when wholesaler independence, when wholesaler obligations become eroded and manufacturers or retailers are allowed to do things like distribute, that erodes our three-tier system. Let me emphasize, if there's one takeaway about this bill, if there's one takeaway you should have after this conversation today, is that if this bill passes, the state of Illinois will be the first state in the country to lose, in my views, in my opinion, lose the case pending in the federal courts right now entitled Lebemoff versus O'Connell. The ILCC is currently defending this lawsuit to justify prohibitions against shipments by out-of-state retailers. This legislation undercuts pending litigation on Lebemoff. The state currently prohibits out-of-state retailers from shipping directly to consumers. This bill is now asking for the ability of out-of-state manufacturers, which are distillers and breweries, to ship directly to consumers. If that's permitted, the defense of the state of Illinois in the Lebemoff case, in my view, will be severely compromised and could likely result in a loss. And let me be clear, this Lebemoff plaintiff has filed challenges to the three-tier system in the federal courts around the country. It is a concerted effort, it is a coordinated effort to allow out-of-state retailers to ship to Illinois consumers without having a physical presence. Our Illinois retailers play by the rules. They have a physical presence just like the wholesalers. The success of retailers, the success and recovery of our industry is wholly dependent on the success of retailers. This is to say that if outside members of the tiers that are not retailers are allowed to conduct these activities, it will cut into the revenue of the very tier we're trying to save. Because without the retailers, no one has anyone to sell to. Consumers buy from retailers. They don't buy from wholesalers, and they generally buy a very limited amount from tasting rooms and appearing at wineries, that type of thing. Without the retail tier surviving, without the threats that we're seeing here, that's the only way that the retailers will be successful. Let me be clear, the Lebamoth type of plaintiff is not one in any state around the country. The federal court sitting in Michigan, the federal appellate court sitting in Michigan, rejected the challenge by Lebamoth, just like the challenge they're making here in Illinois. The Eighth Circuit, which sits in Missouri, rejected an identical challenge. The Ninth Circuit rejected an identical challenge. In each case, the court upheld the importance of the three-tier system and the power of each state to regulate alcohol. In fact, the states of Ohio and Michigan have gone further, enforcing a federal act allowing states to enjoin illegal shipments of alcohol into the state. You heard earlier that Mr. Les Peterson said that one of his key enforcement issues is to prevent illegal sales of online alcohol. If we allow out-of-state manufacturers or out-of-state retailers to ship to Illinois consumers, it's going to cascade, and the enforcement will be impossible. These folks are out-of-state. They don't have a physical presence, and they're very difficult to inspect them, to check if they're paying taxes. And, even if they lose their license, if you license them, they still have the portal to do it. By having a physical presence, there is a much clearer enforcement ability, a much clearer ability to collect taxes. This bill undermines those issues. And what we're talking about is the online ordering of beer and spirits. These are the drinks of choices of minors. This will open the door to minors being able to have greater access to alcohol, which is counter to the three-tier system. Anything that we allow the in-state manufacturers to do, such as deliver and ship, because of the Supreme Court decision in Granholm and the recent decision in Tennessee Wine, we would be obligated then to allow out-of-state manufacturers to do the same thing. So I would respectfully say that it is critical for the commission to oppose this bill. Let me mention one more point. This commission has regulated brew pubs as retailers. And it's been the historic practice. They are a specialty retailer with a manufacturing privilege. This bill is seeking the right and the privilege for brew pubs to self-distribute. The brew pub's a retailer. If we allow retailers to self-distribute, then we're going to see retailer to retailer transfer. All of these activities undermine the three-tier system. And the other thing that they do, beyond allowing access to minors, we now start to have questions on the integrity of product. The three-tier system, among many other things, prevents counterfeit products from entering the state. I know that Mr. Peterson in past meetings, as I listened to all of these meetings, has talked about counterfeit high-end bourbons, counterfeit other products. We know that internationally, we've heard about Americans vacationing in places like Mexico, Dominican Republic, and having alcohol poisoning. When was the last time we heard of a case in the United States of alcohol poisoning? We don't, and we don't in this state because of our ability to track problematic products. When a product goes through the three-tier system, each tier is accountable to the other tier. This bill takes away that accountability, and it opens the door and cascades other interests to come into the state and greatly undermine our three-tier system. Our Liquor Control Act will be completely compromised if this bill passes. So in summary, I'm just asking that the ILCC oppose this legislation, And we're asking for your support in that regard. Thank you for your time. I'll mute myself, but if you have questions, I'm available to answer them.
Thank you very much, Councilor Christopoulos. Does anyone from the board care to comment at this time?
This is
Or have
Commissioner,
questions or whatever?
this is Commissioner Polito Sanchez. Demetrius, you made a very strong case for what you're advocating for here on the three-tier system. I do have a question, and maybe it's a question directed to Chris Coleman because he touched on it. Chris, you said that they're using the excuse of COVID to advocate for this position. Can you give me an example of that, of what they're saying in reference to COVID and how COVID is a part of this?
Sure, absolutely, Commissioner. Thank you for the question. So specifically, the provision about brew pubs self-distributing is one that the entity that's putting forth this legislation has attempted to do previously. And so I think the motivation there is, and with COVID, even though it had attempted to do it before, now is because of COVID, we have to allow this because we're having difficulties, even though you all have issued some temporary policies that are allowing, at least on the delivery side of things.
Okay. I have another question. The cocktails to go, how has that affected the beer industry?
So with cocktails to go, I would say that beer was, I guess, essentially left out of that simply because there's already a provision that allows, cellars and crowlers to be sold. So it wasn't, that big of an issue in terms of beer is concerned, of course. We were, in working with the legislators who were crafting this bill last year, were very adamant about the containers, which I know is a question that you brought up earlier, which I think is a really prudent point. And while cost may certainly play a role in that, we feel that it's really important to not have, a styrofoam cup with a plastic lid and straw in the cup holder as you're driving home after you picked up your dinner, because that's just right for, operating a vehicle under the influence. So we absolutely came at it from that standpoint of, public health of consumers here in Illinois.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, Commissioner Span Cooper, I have a question. Mr. Christopoulos, I'm sorry I had to step away for a couple of minutes while you were on, so forgive me if you've mentioned this. Have you all done any research on or surveys on the level of erosion this would cause to your industry, if in fact this happens?
Commissioner Cooper, the way I would address that is what we've seen in the appellate court decisions on the federal level. There was a case, I believe in Missouri in the 8th Circuit, that looked very hard at all the exceptions their state's Liquor Control Act had afforded. And that the court's interpretation that was that the exceptions had swallowed up the rule and had made, effectively Swiss cheese out of the regulatory system. And in fact, I watched the 7th Circuit arguments in the Lebemoff case, and that was one of the issues that court was talking about because it had gone up on appeal before it went back to the trial court. And the concern judges have around the country is if we're so concerned about maintaining the three-tier system, how come we're allowing all these exceptions? Oh, this is no big deal. This is no big deal. All of a sudden, all the no big deals become the big deal. And that's the survey that I've done. And let me be clear, there are some states that allow direct shipment. They're very few. It's just about a dozen. The majority of the states and all the states around us have sought very carefully to enforce, to file enforcement actions against retailers who are trying to ship into Illinois illegally. And that's been a big issue for a long time. It's been a tax revenue issue. It's been an enforcement issue. It's been a safety issue. I mean, retailers are driving across state lines to pick up product and bring it over. Now, if we're going to allow an Indiana retailer, for example, to ship to an Illinois consumer, we have no idea where that Indiana retailer has gotten the product from. Could we be assured that product has gone through the three-tier system? So we know it here because your qualified inspectors go to the premises, they check invoices, They check the labels of the products. They make sure that there aren't bottles without labels, that they're not self-filled, that they're not married with other products. This ensures the safety of the consuming public.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair, if I may, I just wanted to make another point here very quickly. ABDI is not the only association that's opposed to this legislation. Let me just point out that the Illinois Licensed Beverage Association, the Illinois Retail Merchants Association, the Fuel and Retail Association, Molson Coors, Anheuser-Busch, the Wine and Spirit Distributors of Illinois, and the Teamsters, our unions, our drivers' unions and warehousemen's union, is all opposed. They're all opposed to this legislation. So what you have here is you have manufacturers, distributors, and retailers all opposed to this legislation. And the reason for which is this. This bill does nothing to help any other entity other than the craft brew and craft spirits industry. This does nothing to help the 5,000 restaurants that have closed down. Sam Toyotaya, Illinois has suffered 5,000 closures of restaurants. This does nothing to help the 2,700 bars that have closed down because of COVID. This does nothing to help them. And that is the reason why these other entities are opposed to this legislation.
Hi, Commissioner Gibbons, I have a question.
Please, Commissioner.
Yes, with the number of microbrews that are in existence now, I know we're losing many, as it was true in the wine industry years ago, that the weak will fail, the strong will survive. I don't think they're going to go away though, and I remember in the past listening to stories where the larger distributors could not find a way to distribute the microbrewery product. Has there been any thought given to possibly organizing a company or more than one companies that might be able to concentrate and only distribute these microbrews?
Yes, we have that. We have that currently, Commissioner. There's a number of my members that only focus on craft beer. One of which is Marketplace out of Peoria. They service statewide. Another is the Windy City division of Chicago Beverage Systems. They focus only on, craft beer. So, and that's just a few examples. There's many others that are out there, and very many of them, like I said earlier, they're eager to get a hold of these brands and get these brands on the shelves.
I know there are many that exist. There are not a lot, but there are some that exist. But maybe the answer is that there should be more, so that it can be rapid through for someone to make, establish more small distributors.
Understood. We'll be happy to work with the commission on that. Absolutely.
This is Commissioner O'Connell. I just have a quick question. Bob, you gave quite a list of people who are opposed to this legislation. Anyone other than the craft brewers, and you can answer this, or Dimitri, whoever wants to, anyone other than the craft brewers who are in favor of this legislation, hope you're aware of?
To my knowledge, the only entities that would be in favor would be the Illinois Craft Brewers and the Illinois Craft Distillers. There's nothing in the bill for any other entity to sign on as a proponent.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Powell, Lamalfa?
Well, thank you very, very much. We greatly appreciate the time. And I promise you that we'll get back on those other numbers that you requested. And again, thank you very much for the time. And again, Director Inya, best wishes to you on your future endeavor. We're gonna miss you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Myers, Nick Coleman, and Christopoulos. It was very informative. We appreciate everything that you've done for the industry, and thank you for acknowledging our CHIMA. Item number 10, public comment. I understand we have multiple public comments. Secretary Agiris, do you know who is going to proceed first?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the first speakers would be Alec Laird and Tanya Dawood from IRMA.
Are they speaking together, or I'm not sure what you mean?
It's my understanding that they were asking to speak together.
Okay. All right. Well, that's different. Okay, we'll go that way.
Hi, this is Tanya Trish Dawood. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. And actually, it's just going to be me. I don't need a party. I can handle it myself. Thank you. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak on Senate Bill 2130. And just very quickly before I do that, I also want to extend my congratulations to Director Enya. You've been a very steady hand in a very uncertain time. And it looks like we aren't the only ones who noticed that. So congrats to you. And good luck in your future endeavors, although I'm sure you won't need any luck. Senate Bill 2130, no worries. Senate Bill 2130 is a bill that was introduced by Senator Rochelle Crow. It is the bill that we have been discussing at length for the last couple of years with this commission to ensure that cooperative purchasing groups continue their work in the state of Illinois as they have been recognized for the last 40 or so years. It has always been our intent to just continue that work, not do anything more, not do anything less. Senate Bill 2130 is a reflection of that intention. It's taken some time to get here. Frankly, because we don't like to go it alone. We want to make sure that the other members of the tiers have had a chance to fully vet what it is we're trying to do, and that we can get agreement and move forward. We will not let the inability to get agreement stop us from moving forward. But if there's an opportunity for agreement, we want to take advantage of that. So that said, we have entered into substantive negotiations with the wine and spirits distributors. Those negotiations have gone on for many, many months. And frankly, there were a number of items put forth for discussion by the wine and spirits distributors that they wanted in the legislation. And after some back and forth, we agreed to the majority of their items. And when I say we agreed to the majority of their items, there were 10 items, we've agreed to 9. So we have gone above and beyond, I think, the opportunity to try and reach an agreement. And even though we haven't agreed on the 10th point, we are still in substantive negotiations with WISD. And we are hopeful that we can come to some understanding. But let me be clear, we will move this bill regardless. So I'll just sort of detail for you the 9 items that WISD wanted to see in the bill and that we agreed to. There was a number of restrictions that they wanted to place on the buying groups. They wanted them to register. They wanted to make sure that retailers were assigned to only one buying group, that they couldn't be members of several buying groups at one time. They wanted to ensure that there was not an opportunity to sort of hop from one group to another at whim. So there were restrictions placed on when a licensee could move to another group should they wish. There were record-keeping restrictions that we put in place to require notice if new members wanted to join the group, and which members were going to participate in the deals. There were regulations placed on invoices, whether or not there was going to be the use of a master invoice for the whole buying group, so that it could be consistent with other retailers that are not a part of buying groups. There were on-premise and off-premise distinctions, meaning that there would be separate buying groups for on-premise retailers and other buying groups for off-premise retailers. The delinquency list is something that we discussed as well. It was our desire to move that function from WSDE to the ILCC, and that the ILCC is the appropriate administrator of that list. And there have been some discussions on how a person gets on the list, how a person comes off the list, so on and so forth. And then there were deal purchase requirements, determining whether or not every retailer in a buying group had to participate in every deal. And if they do elect to participate, what they would need in order to qualify for the discount, and minimum sort of purchasing requirements that are placed on the group. So if you're going to make a purchase, right, there has to be some skin in the game for the retailers that are that are joining that deal, right? So
that's the last week.
2% of the deal on up to 500 cases, 1.5% of deals for over 500 cases to 2,000 cases, and so on. So we negotiated those finer points with WSDE to come to some agreement on those issues. And I believe, at least in concept, that we have agreed on those 9 items that I just detailed for you. The last item is an item that we have not agreed to, and that is how agents of the buying groups will be treated. And, it is our understanding that agents are allowed to negotiate on behalf of buying groups, negotiate the volume discounts, as they have done over these last 40 years. In addition to that, some of the agents have other companies that engage in marketing activities. Once the product gets on the store shelves, right, the product needs to be marketed in store in order to entice customers to purchase the product. So there are a number of agents over the years that have separate companies that provide marketing activities to help move product off the shelf. So we are focused in on all 10 items. We have included all 10 items in Senate Bill 2130. We are still having discussions as to some possible amendments to what is out there. And we are very much intentional in those discussions. And we are very much looking forward to passage of Senate Bill 2130, which again will continue buying groups in the state of Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawood. Secretary Agiris, who is next?
Excuse me, Chair Berg, this is Commissioner Polito Sanchez. I have a question for Tanya, if I may.
We are in public comment. I suppose we could allow one.
Oh, I just wanted, Tanya, thank you, Madam Chair. Tanya, can you expand a little more on the issue that the 2 slides don't agree on, point number 10? Can you, I'm not real clear on that.
Yes, Commissioner. So in order to participate in the buying groups, right, the individual retailers need an agent that actually engages in the discussions on the volume discounts with the distributors. So we have written into the ordinance that the agents would do those things. In a separate and aside from those discussions on negotiating volume discounts for buying groups, some agents have other companies, a variety of other companies, but one kind of those companies is a marketing company. And basically they would, they hire folks to go out and set up store displays in the stores, make the products look nice, to be enticing to customers to, buy more product. And so that business is separate and apart from the business of them acting as an agent for the purposes of negotiating a volume discount. And the issue I think we're having here is that, WSDI, and I don't want to speak for them, but I believe the issue to be that WSDI does not want anyone who acts as an agent for the purposes of negotiating a volume discount to have a marketing business. And what we are saying is their separate business has nothing to do with negotiating these discounts. And we're not regulating that. What we're regulating is volume discounts, cooperative purchasing agreements. That's what the Senate bill does.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Secretary Agiris, who is next?
Yes, Madam Chair. So next we have Jeremy Crudenier from WSDI.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and other members of the Commission for inviting me to speak today. I also want to echo everybody else's comments. Thanks to Chima for his outstanding leadership over the last 3 years. I've known Chima for a long time, since we were both young staffers at the state over a decade ago. And it's nice to see him rise to this position and also, unfortunately, be plucked off to another opportunity, but congratulations. And I know you'll do well in your future endeavors. So thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks.
Just for the record, I'm Jeremy Crudenier, the Executive Director and General Counsel of the Wine and Spirits Distributors of Illinois, an organization representing 60 distributors throughout the state. We range from solo employee wine importers to large multi-state corporations. I'll be very brief. I know it's been a long hearing already. As you know, this has been a process that has played out over 2 years. The original question posed to the Commission in an industry bulletin in March of 2019 was whether commonly owned retailers could aggregate their purchases across their locations in order to qualify for volume discounts. Eventually, that question morphed into whether non-commonly owned locations could do the same thing. As you probably remember from previous testimony, WSDI was in favor of the former concept when they are commonly owned and against the latter concept of non-commonly owned locations doing the same thing. But over time, we have embraced the concept of permitting non-commonly owned licensees to aggregate their purchasing power to get larger volume deals, as long as they follow similar rules as the commonly owned location, right? So I want to be clear, we have moved our position enormously and are embracing this idea of non-commonly owned entities to aggregate their purchasing power to get a better price. WSDI and IRMA have been negotiating for some time, and we recently came back and have had some productive discussions over the past week. I'll address some of the points that we've been discussing. There are sort of a 10-point framework that we've settled on. However, I would say 6 of those points are just common sense logistical matters related to buying group registration and deal hopping, record keeping. So we'll put those aside. There are 4 substantive issues that I think have been on the table. One was the retailer's request that the delinquency list move from WSDI to the ILCC and the ILCC take implementation of that. and we have agreed to that. The second and third are related to deal purchase requirements. There are two parts to that, whether they have to participate in every deal, and obviously not every location is going to want to participate in every deal, so there's no requirement of that, so we agreed to that as well. And then there was quite a bit of back and forth related to deal purchase requirements, minimum purchase requirements, and then the amount of product that a retailer would have to take to participate in the discussion. And those took a lot of back and forth. We didn't get everything we wanted out of that, but we did compromise there. And then the last point, which Tanya laid out eloquently, relates to the way that the cooperative agents are paid. Cooperative purchasing agents are not licensees under the Act. And again, our intention is to allow these retailers to aggregate their purchase to jointly qualify for a deeper volume discount. However, when the agents are acting as the buyer for these retailers, they step into the shoes of those retailers to buy from a distributor, and they should therefore be restricted from accepting payments from distributors and suppliers, just as a buyer for a major corporate chain is barred from accepting payments from distributors and suppliers. Suppliers who don't participate in making those payments are put at a disadvantage when they're dealing with the buyers in that scenario. And that's really what it's come down to. We don't see them as separate issues. In fact, I believe, the staff in the original discussions of this proposed rule had similar restrictions that we're asking for. Now, look, we're willing to continue discussions, and in fact, we submitted some language that would be an amendment to Senate Bill 2130. The current language of Senate Bill 2130 does not reflect some of the changes that we've discussed, and so we sent some language over there, and we're going to keep those discussions going. WSDE is committed to passing a bill this session that would, for the first time, codify cooperative purchasing groups and allow them to aggregate their purchasing power. They formerly existed in a sort of gray area for a long time. Not everybody recognized them previously. Many of my smaller members have never dealt with them, but this would create a formal process with respect to the cooperative purchasing groups, and that's sort of the update from our perspective. And with that, I'm happy to, I guess we're not allowed to do questions, but I'd be happy to answer some if there are any.
Yeah, Mr. Creighton, I'm sorry, this is not a hearing, this is a public comment. I don't know what that impression came from. There's not specific agenda item regarding this. It's just legislative updates, so that's why it is in public comment, but we appreciate everything, and I think our commission has been directed to talk to Mr. Haymaker previously in the meeting regarding
Got it.
questions and comments, but
Well, thank you so much for your time.
thank you so much. Secretary Agiras, is there another public comments?
Yes, there is. Next one up is Pat Dorr with the Hospitality Business Association of Chicago.
Sorry, this is Jason. I am unable to move Pat Dorr into a panelist and unmute. Pat, I'm not sure if maybe you didn't register the correct way.
Jason,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, would it be reasonable to get Pat up through the technology issue, and we could move on to the next public comment, or maybe come back to Pat if you can reach out to him and get him situated?
Yes, Pat, I'll be reaching to you through the chat function here shortly.
All right, so then the next person would be Danielle D'Alessandro from ICBG.
Hello, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. First, I would just like to also echo congratulations to Director Enya. Thank you, Chima, for your professionalism and for the work that you've done at the Commission. It's greatly appreciated. Again, my name is Danielle D'Alessandro. I'm the Executive Director of the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. Thank you to Commissioners, Director Enya, and staff for the opportunity to provide public comment today on legislation filed on behalf of small brewers across Illinois. Commissioners should have received 2 documents in advance of my comments that include the press release we shared with statewide media outlets when we filed the legislation and the fact sheet that we have shared with legislators. Senate Bill 543 and House Bill 3495, also known as the Beer Act, Brewers' Economic Equity and Relief, would offer a critical lifeline to craft brewers that have been devastated by the pandemic and create parity across the Liquor Control Act. The Liquor Control Act of 1934 continues to create barriers to small producers that must innovate in order to remain competitive. The Beer Act seeks to provide reasonable opportunities within the 3-tier system for small producers to stay in business and meet changing consumer demands and preferences. Based on testimony provided by the beer distributors, they would have you believe that our proposed legislation would simply destroy the 3-tier system, lead to underage drinking, lead to the sale of illegal beer, allow alcohol producers to skip paying taxes, lose the court case that the state is involved in, and quite simply ruin our society, which is quite impressive for an organization that employs 2 full-time people and represents 291 craft brewers, of which roughly 205 are members. The Illinois Craft Brewers Guild exists to support our state's craft brewing industry. There's no reason why we as the craft brewers would introduce legislation on behalf of other industry stakeholders. And in fact, legislation has previously been introduced and passed that's benefited the state's retailers. I'm going to run through the measures that are included in the Beer Act in the order provided in the analysis of the bill that was provided by ILCC's legal staff. I'll also do my best to address concerns that have been made by the beer distributors. Before I begin, though, I would like to reference a quote from Senate President Don Harmon in his op-ed published in the Chicago Sun-Times yesterday on redistricting reform that I think is pertinent in today's discussion. President Harmon states, "We will be guided by the knowledge that the best way to guarantee fairness is to create more room at the table." I think that's relevant here. The regulations around liquor are not a zero-sum game. Providing the opportunities we are proposing for small brewers to innovate and interact more directly with the consumer would not take away business from distributors or retailers. More people can and should be at the table. Modernizing the Liquor Control Act via our legislation would also not alter the significance or viability of the 3-tier system. There is simply no way our breweries, wineries, and distilleries could survive without a distribution network. Our legislation simply acknowledges that the 3-tier system doesn't account for small alcohol producers that don't have traditional access to the market because of their low production volume, which is simply not attractive for a distributor to carry. Distributors need to make money too, but with thousands of beer brands represented in the Chicagoland area alone and consolidation among beer distributors over the past several years, there is simply no way distributors can effectively represent and carry the smallest brewers. There are and should continue to be exceptions made to the 3-tier system to ensure the viability of our state's small brewers. As it pertains to permanent delivery and direct-to-consumer shipping, we'll just quickly note that ABDI did not actually support brewers having the ability to temporary home delivery that was granted last March. So I would like to push back against that. Our proposed legislation would create parity for brewers to continue home delivery to Illinois consumers. Senate Bill 54, the liquor delivery bill that passed in the lame duck session and is awaiting the governor's signature, provided uniform and permanent delivery to the state's 30,000 plus licensed retailers. That means that a gas station that sells alcohol or a 7-Eleven or big box grocer like Walmart or Whole Foods can deliver to a consumer's home. But the state's 290 craft brewers can't? Why? Because it hasn't moved through the 3-tier system. But what about the brands that can't be represented on the shelves at those stores? They just lose out? Brewers are still responsible for reporting and paying all applicable taxes when they make a sale. All breweries that have tap rooms are also licensed by the municipality with retail privileges similar to other retailers. This would ensure a healthy and safe way to continue to sell product to consumers that would prefer to stay home. Especially since the General Assembly has included curbside pickup as a delivery option, this would significantly hinder a small brewer's ability to sell for off-site consumption. We have had temporary home delivery for brewers, wineries, and distillers since last March, and the sky has not fallen. Some brewers have been able to remain in business because of it, and many brewers have decided to not offer it as an option, but at least they are given the ability to choose that option if necessary. For direct-to-consumer shipping, there are 47 states that in the US that currently allow direct-to-consumer or DTC wine shipping. Since 2005, Illinois has permitted in-state and out-of-state wineries to ship up to 12 cases of wine per year to an Illinois resident. What's happened? It's worked great for the consumer, the wineries, and for wine distributors. Greater brand recognition provides an opportunity for the alcohol producer and the distributor carrying that product. There are also 10 states, including Washington, D.C., that currently allow DTC beer shipping. New York does as well, but only for their in-state breweries. We do not believe our legislation would have any impact on the current ruling of Lieberman versus O'Connell. That lawsuit is dealing directly with in-state versus out-of-state retailer shipping. The Beer Act would create parity among alcohol producers by allowing brewers and distillers with the same ability to ship direct to consumer like wineries. We are mirroring Illinois' winery shipping license, which would cap shipping similarly to the 12 cases of wine to 12 cases of beer or spirits per Illinois resident per year. One of Michigan's appellate courts did also reverse a previous ruling at the district level and upheld the state's law that allows in-state retailers to ship but prohibits out-of-state retailers. That plaintiff is now trying to take the case to the US Supreme Court. Going back to that, though, to delivery and to address the statement that home delivery for in-state brewers is an unconstitutional.
Tanya, State Risco here with the King Patch Group. I hope all.
Going back to delivery to address the statement that home delivery for in-state brewers is an unconstitutional proposal because it wouldn't be extended to out-of-state brewers. I find that interesting that concern wasn't also raised then in the debate on Senate Bill 54. Senate Bill 54 again provides for uniform and permanent delivery for all Illinois licensed retailers, but did not extend that same privilege to out-of-state retailers. The idea, too, that we would threaten with this legislation the recovery of bars and restaurants from the pandemic. The General Assembly addressed bars and restaurants through Senate Bill 54 and cocktails to go last spring. Small brewers have continued to be left out. All on-site spaces have been devastated. Yes, bars and restaurants have been hurt, and so have the state's brew pubs and tap rooms that rely heavily on consumer traffic the same way other hospitality establishments do. Allowing less than 300 additional establishments in the entire state would not impact the recovery of tens of thousands of bars and restaurants. And finally, with all due respect to staff, I wasn't aware that the mission of the ILCC was to protect the economic interests of bars and restaurants. Moving on to brewpub self-distribution. The Beer Act would allow a licensed brewpub the ability to self-distribute up to 200 barrels or 6,200 gallons of beer a year to a retailer or brewery tap room located within a 10-mile radius if located within the city of Chicago, and within a 50-mile radius if located outside the city, recognizing that a local or neighboring bar or restaurant in more rural parts of the state may be 20 or 30 miles away. This idea that promotes anti-competitive tied houses. I find it hard to believe that brewpubs could ever use their distribution privileges to their advantage over competing retailers. 200 barrels a year is about the size of a big truck that you see unloading outside of a grocery store. There are roughly 150 brewpubs in the entire state of Illinois. Even if every brewpub was allowed to self-distribute up to the maximum amount of 200 barrels a year, it would still only account for less than 2% of all of the beer that was produced in Illinois in 2019 based on TTB data. We are talking about an incredibly small amount of beer. Wisconsin and Indiana both allow brewpubs to self-distribute. Brewpubs in Indiana can self-distribute up to 30,000 barrels annually, And in Wisconsin, it's 1,000 barrels. Again, we are proposing 200. The other criticisms fall to me within the slippery slope argument. If these measures are passed now, we will come back more and ask for more later. I find that interesting because in the 10 years that self-distribution has been permitted for craft brewers in Illinois, we haven't once introduced a bill proposing to increase those limits. We also haven't introduced a bill that would expand the number of retail licenses that a Class II brewery can hold. To be clear, there are caps everywhere in the Liquor Control Act that limit the ability of craft brewers in Illinois to grow. So I'm simply unclear how our small industry could so easily upend the entire three-tier system from the measures we are proposing. By law, brewers also cannot self-distribute in a territory where they also have a distributor. This would be the same for brew pubs. And I'd be happy to expand on this during any follow-up questions after the meeting. Finally, the pandemic exacerbated the need for brew pubs to have some limited ability to self-distribute. With the closure of on-site dining and consumption, brew pubs without a distributor had no way to get their product out to consumers except via to-go or delivery orders. As one example, we had a brew pub that's down near in Millstadt, Illinois, near Metro East, that had a local grocery store that was willing to carry their product. They asked the distributor in their territory, asked a distributor if they would carry the product to that grocery store, and they declined. We also have brew pubs that have had distributor agreements that simply have not been a priority for those distributors to get their product to the retailer. And most of these cases are for brew pubs and a retailer that is within, again, a small geographic region. It could be 5 miles away, it could be down the street. But because brew pubs manufacture, produce such small volume, there's just no incentive, and there shouldn't be, for a distributor to pick up a couple cases of beer, maybe 6 cases or a couple of kegs, and deliver that then to the retailer. In Illinois, as was referenced, distributors have to go and pick up the product from the manufacturer, bring it back to their distributor warehouse where it sits at rest before then bringing it back out to the retailer. So in a case where you have a local bar, restaurant, coffee shop that wants to carry the product from a brew pub, that brew pub simply can't just walk, again, a couple of cases or a couple of kegs to that retailer. It has to go through the three-tier system. But again, sometimes there are just not options for those brew pubs to be able to do so. To date, I have not seen any evidence or data that our proposal would result in job losses from distributors or in any way impact their sales. If anything, a brew pub that is able to build brand awareness and loyalty by getting on some local store shelves or a couple of local taps will only create a possible need for a distributor down the road. Again, this is not a zero-sum game. In fact, one small brewer in Chicago that has delivered to consumers' homes during the pandemic also saw sales with their distributor grow at the same time. Moving on to sunset of cocktails to go, we do propose striking the sunset date of the cocktails to go provisions and including brew pubs, distilling tasting rooms, and winemakers that sell spirits and cocktails on site. Brew pubs purchase spirits from licensed distributors and should not be restricted from selling cocktails to go simply because they also manufacture beer. We're happy to allow the law to sunset at its current date or at a future time, but would seek to have brew pubs included in the privilege given their specialty retail designation and similarity to retailers. The final piece is the issuance of multiple craft licenses to the same businesses. The ILCC has in the past issued more than one manufacturer's license to a single entity to produce both beer and spirits or beer and wine. Due to the interpretation change, we are just looking to codify in state law the ability for an alcohol producer to make more than one type of alcohol while maintaining self-distribution. We are not seeking to increase the number of retail licenses permitted for craft producers, and we'll work with the Commission on recommended revisions if that's how they read it. In summary, this bill is good for our small brewers, our consumers, and our industry partners. I appreciate your time and ask for Commissioner support, or at the very least to remain neutral in this important piece of legislation to ensure our state's craft brewers have the business opportunities necessary to, at the moment, simply survive, but eventually begin to grow again. The 4 weeks in January 2021 were the worst 4 weeks recorded for craft beer since the pandemic began. with limited financial assistance from the government, on-site dining suspended, the harsh winter, and dry January, craft brewers, along with others, are simply not in the clear yet. And with still roughly half of consumers still not ready to dine out in person, your support of our proposals will ensure small businesses can have the tools to stay in business. Food and beverage is the #1 category right now for online purchases and e-commerce. Consumers are choosing to buy online. This is just a natural next step for small brewers for the ability to sell via those other mediums, just like Drizzly and DoorDash and other third-party deliveries do. Simply saying to pick a lane, that our legislation is anti-3-tier, or that it would hurt the entire industry is just that, a simple threat that has not come to fruition. Again, many states already allow the same type of measures that we are proposing, and it's worked. We have not seen alcohol consumption increase nationally, and it's provided an opportunity for now more than 10,000 wineries, close to 9,000 breweries, and 2,000 distilleries to operate in the US, to employ people, and to bring revenue to their local and state governments, while also providing an experience for consumers to try new brands and products. Yes, we do have some opponents. Why? I would say that it's protectionism, and because the beer distributors have said so. But that does not mean that we are anti-3-tier, especially because so many of our members participate in the 3-tier system. And it does not mean that the sky will fall, or that as society advances or changes, that we shouldn't have a regulatory structure that can also adapt and change, while of course meeting all of the goals the 3-tier system seeks to achieve. Please do not oppose this important legislation on behalf of the state's 291 craft brewers. The small industry has provided tremendous economic impact for the state over the past 10 years. Let's continue to allow our small brewers the ability to innovate and adapt. Thank you, commissioners, for your time.
Thank you, Ms. D'Alessandro. I do have to say that we did not receive the articles that you had sent over, but Secretary Jairus has assured us he has just emailed them to the commissioners for their review. And thank you very much.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Jairus, who's the next public commenter?
We do not have any more public comments at this time.
Okay. Nobody's called in?
Sorry, one second.
I'm
sorry, 1 second. I did correct. Pat is now able to speak. Pat Doer.
Thank you.
Pat, are you here with me?
Good afternoon, commissioners. Not sure of the technical issue. Thank you for your help, Jason. It's been a very long meeting, and I'll be very brief. Farewell, Executive Director. You were the best state agency and the best team to work with during the pandemic. It was absolutely amazing support and education at all stages. The best state agency of the many I worked with. So wish you well in the future. I'm only speaking up. I'll speak about it at more length next month, but there are a few cocktails to go bills coming, and commissioners have repeatedly raised the issue of responsible service. We had a nice visual prepared for you that I can't deliver right now, but we'll post it on our social media at HBA Chicago, and I will send it to the commission later tonight. But the issue is large suppliers, brewers, and players in the industry can already bottle and can their products. And I picked up 6 different ones from large retailers in Chicago this morning in single serve, not extending cocktails to go as Senator Feigenhold's bill, SB 104, which is already over in the House for a few more years, would really put responsible retailers who are packaging them correctly at a disadvantage. And to an issue that was also raised earlier today with Mr. Peterson, cocktails to go came very quickly, and the education probably wasn't where it needed to be among everything retailers are struggling with. But it is a very safe package and a useful additional offering for small businesses. So as we go forward with the cocktails to go debate, we, on behalf of our over 200 Chicago members, really hope to see the commission supportive of extending this project, this pilot, beyond its currently scheduled June 2nd expiration date. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all well. This has been a long meeting, but I hope it's been informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Jairus, would it be possible if you could obtain that video and have it sent out to all of us?
Yes, I will.
His presentation that we were able to see. Thank you so much. Moving on to item 11, receive comments from the board. Commissioner Span Cooper?
I'm sorry, Chairwoman, can you repeat that?
Do you have any comments to make today?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gibbons?
No, thank you.
Commissioner LaMalfa?
No, thank you.
Commissioner O'Connell?
No, I don't.
Commissioner Powell?
I do not. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Commissioner Polito Sanchez?
I just want to thank you for allowing me to ask a question for public.
Oh, no problem. I thought there was some confusion here. I want everybody to speak and share their ideas, but
Good
anyway,
meeting.
it was still not over. Again, thank you, Chima, for everything that you've done for us. I'm really happy that you got a new job, and you really deserve the best. You really have been the best leader for us, and it's only been a year and a half for you and I, but I feel like you're my son, so just wanted to say good luck to you, because everybody could use a little luck, but you're more good than lucky. That's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone. Thank you all.
You're welcome. At this time, items 12 and 13 are being removed from the agenda. Do I have a motion to remove items 12 and 13, executive session and appeals, from the agenda?
So moved.
I second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded. Secretary Jairus, please call the roll.
Chair Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
and Commissioner Powell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 14, do I have a motion for the adjournment of the Illinois Liquor Control Commission meeting?
I'll make a motion.
So move by Commissioner O'Connell, second by Commissioner.
Move that one.
Secretary Jairus, please call the roll.
Chair Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
and Commissioner Powell.
Yes.
Now, motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. The next regular meeting will be April 14th, 2014 at 1 p.m. And I think we're going to be on the wonderful WebEx once again. So thank you everyone for your patience during the meeting, and happy St. Patrick's Day to those who are celebrating.
Thanks, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Bye-bye.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you,
Thank you,
man.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Chima.